More than 300,000 people annually undertake the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, otherwise known as the Way of St. James. Julie Connor provides a unique perspective to the experience for prospective pilgrims in her book, Savoring the Camino de Santiago. It's the pilgrimage, not the hike. Don't go away. We'll be right back. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writer's Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa, and joining us today is our amazing author, Julie Connor. If this is your first time watching the Writer's Corner live show, we've been doing this for the last 4 years, and it's been an amazing journey. And so if you've never watched us before, we'd love to give you a shout out. So whether you're watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, over on LinkedIn, also on Amazon Live, a special warm welcome to you, our live viewers. One of the things we're very passionate about on the show is helping authors show up in an authentic manner online. Now, hybrid is going to be the way forward for the foreseeable future still. And we love to help our authors level up just a little bit so that they can showcase their books and their storytelling online. So one of the things that we do recommend you do if you are going live using your computer is to invest in an additional webcam that'll just improve the quality of your picture a little bit. Both Mary and we love using the Logitech cameras. I highly recommend any of them, and both of us are currently using the Logitech Brio. It's got right side technology, HDR technology, which means it'll adapt to light very easily, and that's one of the great things we love about the Logitech Brio. But something you do want to pay attention to is sound. You do want to make sure that people can hear you clearly. As you can see, I use the Samsung condenser microphone, but you don't have to invest in something as big as that. What we recommend is something like the Rode lavalier microphone that you can plug into your computer or into your phone to give you great sound. So that's the Rode lavalier. And then the other thing that a lot of people do, I know a lot of the authors go live simply using their phones, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you've wondered what those black lines are on the side, it's because your phone is in portrait and you need to just turn it on the side into landscape. The other thing we recommend is that you use a tripod of some sorts. There's some options in the carousel if you're watching us over on Amazon Live. And the reason for that is that if you're trying to hold your phone in your hand while you're trying to explain your book or show your book to people, it's going to make them feel seasick, but it's impossible to hold your phone completely still while you're trying to talk and focus on your audience, because you want to make eye contact with your audience and make them feel like you really care about them. So do invest in a tripod to give you stability. Now let me welcome my amazing co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is an author, a children's book author. She is a ghostwriter. She's also a special needs and disabilities advocate. And so let me welcome my amazing co-host to the show. Mary, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing today? I am very excited to be here, and I'm very excited about our author, and can't wait to talk to her. Yeah, I love the products that we use. Boy, it sure does make a difference in how we appear on camera and how our show goes and the quality. And so it's a great thing to do, because digital and virtual is really where we're going, and more, so we got to level up, like you said. But we're so excited about our author. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I haven't done anything in my life. So I'm going to let you talk about her and tell everybody. But, she's amazing, isn't she?
Julie absolutely is. So for those of you who haven't yet met Julie Connor, she is an award-winning author, publisher, and a retired diplomat. She's led a full life. She founded Bayou City Press after 33 years in the US Foreign Service. Her book includes a travel memoir, the one we're going to be talking about today, Savoring the Camino de Santiago. It's a pilgrimage, not the hike. As well as she's also authored a children's book on adoption, The Baby with 3 families, 2 countries, and 1 promise. Very interesting book. We definitely have to get Julie back onto the show to talk about that book as well, because both her
I
books
love
have
that
won
title.
awards. Amazing. When I first saw that, I thought, wow, that's very unusual. I'd really love to have her back on the show to talk about that. But let's get Julie onto the show because I'm really excited to talk to her today.
Hello.
Hi, Julie.
Julie, welcome to the show.
Do you feel special?
So great to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you, 2 amazing women, and also have a chance to connect with your audience.
No, we're so excited to have you here. And you're such an inspiration. I can't wait for us. We're just going to dive right in, Brigetti, and just let you tell our audience about you. And you're just such an inspiration. So we'll just get started.
Absolutely. So during your time, 33 years as a diplomat, you no doubt traveled to many, many different countries and interesting places. Was there a favorite place? And what was it about the Camino de Santiago that piqued your interest, that made you want to do that journey and write the book?
Well, yes, I have been to many, many countries, but the advantage of the Foreign Service is that you not only get to visit a country for a short visit, but you actually get to live in foreign countries. So I had 9 overseas postings in 7 different countries. I went back to 2 countries for a second tour. But once you're posted overseas, then you get to travel all around that area for shorter visits to visit other posts. So it's a fabulous career for anyone who likes to travel. And I loved it. And that's why I stayed 33 years. I could have retired much earlier, but I just had such fun and wanted so much to represent my country that I stayed on. Now, let me just say, there's a lot of problems too. It's not a dream experience, depending on the person, because you have to like living overseas. You have to like being away from your family back home for long periods. You have to understand you're going to miss a lot of holidays and important events and for members of your family. And also, you do have an element of risk and danger. But if you're good with those parameters, it's just a fabulous career.
Those are very interesting prerequisites for a job. If that would be the job description, I'm not sure how many people will be running to do that, but it's very awesome. And we're so grateful that you did it, and that we have the privilege and honor of meeting you today and being able to share, your journey. It's just such a, wow. I don't know. Everyone has a story. You have lots of stories. So, so how long did it take you to, oh, go ahead, Brigetti.
So I wanted to know what was it about the Camino de Santiago that piqued your interest, that made you want to do this tour?
Right.
Well, when I was in my 3rd year of college, junior year, I dropped out and I went to Europe. And I lived in Portugal and then Spain and then in England, and I taught English for foreigners. And while I was in Portugal, my roommate, who was a New Zealander, gave me this book. And she said, you have to read this book. And so I did. And it was James Michener's Iberia. Now, for those of you who go back a ways like I do, you might remember that James Michener was hugely popular in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. he's not talked about much anymore, but he remains for me a fabulous author about Spain and Portugal. And anyway, his book, Iberia, I read that, and chapter 13 of his book is about the Camino de Santiago. So that was way back in like 1971. And since then, I wanted to do the Camino, but I didn't have the time. I was young, I was living on the economy, I didn't have the money. So I put it off. I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And when I finally decided to retire, I said, okay, my first long trip is going to be the Camino. And that's what it was.
So that's my next question. How long did it take you to make the journey, and how did you decide, what route to take?
So the journey can be as long or as short as a pilgrim wants it to be. In my case, we did what's called the French route, which you start in France, go over the Pyrenees, and then walk or travel along northern Spain until you end up at Santiago de Compostela, which is the goal for any pilgrimage on this, for this pilgrimage. You can start anywhere in the world, but that's where you end up, is Santiago de Compostela, which is near the Atlantic coast of Spain, the western coast. So I traveled, and at the last minute, my son joined me. So there was two of us. But we took 49 days to go from France across the Pyrenees and over to Santiago. Then we also continued on to Finisterre, which is into the earth, the last point right there on the Atlantic Ocean. And after that, we did a week to visit Madrid and Toledo. So 49 days on the actual Camino and then an extra week. But you can do whatever you want. You can do 1 day, 2 days. You can do a week, which will give you probably your 100 kilometers, which you need to be an official pilgrim. Or you can do much further. I met pilgrims who come from Central Europe, the whole way down from Romania or wherever, Poland, wherever. So people come from all over the world.
Wow. So amazing.
That's amazing. So you don't have to do the whole journey. You said you just have to do 100 kilometers, and that will give you the status.
Qualify you. It gives you a sticker, right?
Well, you get a beautiful certificate written in Latin with your name on it, and it's called a Compostela, and that's from the name of the town, Santiago de Compostela. So you get your Compostela, and that just says you really did the pilgrimage. But many people don't care about the certificate. And anyway, if you have one, how many do you need? So a lot of people don't have a lot of time. But what they'll do is they'll do a week, 1 year for a vacation. Then they'll come back the next year and pick up where they left off and do another week, et cetera, until they do all the route that they want to do. Some people start, from England, and they do what's called the English route, which is much shorter. Some people start in Portugal and do the Portuguese route. So there's many, many different routes, established routes to get to Santiago de Compostela. And depending on your time and your interest, you pick what you want to do. In my case, for example, my first was the French route, but I've gone back and done a horseback Camino, which is, riding to Santiago. And we started that on the border with Portugal and headed north. So some people just love the Camino so much, they do it over and over and over again. Different routes, different times, different methods.
Amazing.
That's amazing. So did you have any, since you did it more than once, or, were there any sort of specific encounters during your trip that stood out for you that you'd want people to know about or look out for when they go there?
There are, and I write about these in my book. I had traveled to Spain many times, including for my job, but I knew basically Barcelona, Madrid, and south. I had never been to this northern part of Spain before, I came through on a train once when I crossed there at the border with France. But that was many years ago. I never really visited this part of Spain. And I was shocked that I, who thought I knew Spain so well, had never visited the Burgos Cathedral, the León Cathedral, Roncesvalles, where the famous Song of Roland, all the action in that medieval romance tale took place. So for me, as someone who loves history and loves art and architecture, it was an incredible journey. It was a journey of history and feeling that you were stepping on these stones. Some of them were Roman stones from the Roman times, or the pilgrimage stones from the 1200s and 1300s. It's just such an incredible feeling that you are following in this stream of humanity that has been heading towards Santiago de Compostela for over 1,000 years.
It must be, well, you have had to have had many awe-inspiring moments along your journey, probably more than you can remember. And your photo albums must be ginormous, or your phone is really full. One or the other, right?
That's again, I was saying that that you are two amazing women, and the thing is, I'm an old lady, so
No.
I am reliant on other people a lot of times for technology help. And on that trip in 2016, as I said, my son came along at the last minute. And when we got to France and I'm unpacking things, he's looking at me and saying, "Mom, why did you bring your travel clock?" And I said, "What do you mean? I always travel with my travel clock. I have to have it to get me up in the morning. What are you talking about?" He said, "Mom, it's on your phone. You don't need a travel clock." And it was like everything I took out of my suitcase, it was the same thing. "Why did you bring two cameras? Why did you bring a flashlight?" And I'm like, oh my goodness, see, it hadn't sunk in that the camera, the flashlight, and the travel alarm were on my phone. Anyway, so the problem I had is that I was trying to do a blog, and the Wi-Fi in northern Spain is not so good. So I tried the blogging thing for about 3 weeks, and then I said, this is taking up too much time and too much psychic energy. So I just went back to handwriting my blog, but handwriting my travel journal. But yes, I had a lot of great experiences, and I wrote about them in my book. And I'll tell you, just to give the two places that I would say you must go to are Burgos and Leon cathedrals. They are incredible. They are incredible. And I had no idea. I mean, I'd been to the cathedrals in Madrid and down south in Granada, Seville, and so forth. I've been all over, but these two cathedrals are incredible. So those, also for me, Roncesvalles, as I mentioned, just the history of it. It's like a mystical town. If you've ever seen that movie Brigadoon, where this town appears every 100 years out of the mist, that's Roncesvalles.
Oh, nice. Okay, I'm going to go look that up because I want to know what you're talking about. And this book is like a memoir, and your illustrations are hand drawn. And so, what was your, do you have a flair for art, or did you just decide I'm going to do this? Or is it something you always wanted to do?
Actually, the illustrations are by Mary Connor, my sister-in-law, who was an artist.
Okay.
I have no graphic talent whatsoever. And I knew when I published my book, I realized that having all the color photographs in there was just going to be prohibitive. So I just picked out a few black and white photos. But all of my color photos are on the blog. When I got home, I loaded them all up there. So if a reader wants to see additional photos of much better photos in color, just go to my blog and look at them. But I cajoled Mary into doing these illustrations, and they're hand drawn, as you said, and I love them. I had someone say, "Oh, they're just too unsophisticated," and I said, "This is the Camino. It's bare bones. It's people walking along and drawing or writing or painting, but it's nothing fancy. People have to understand it's not a fancy trip. It's more a spiritual quest or a emotional trip, or some people do it just because they love to hike and they love long walks. But everyone comes home, I think, with something they've gained from the Camino."
Yeah. Now, Julie, normally we ask authors to tell us what the inspiration was for their cover and who did it. But in your case, we know where it comes from because it's a journal. But some of these pictures here, tell us the story about it. I mean, what is the significance of this picture, for example?
Well, the cathedral in the back, that is Santiago de Compostela Cathedral. So that's the end point of the journey. For me, the importance was this shows people arriving by bus. Since about the 1980s, the culture of the Camino has become that you must walk. And I don't believe that. And in fact, in my book, I was a little bit afraid of being attacked are the Camino, I call them Camino fundamentalists, who think you must walk. And I don't think that's true. So I wanted a picture that showed alternate transportation besides walking. Let me just talk about the cover for a minute overall. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a mosaic, but I didn't know how to make it work. So I actually hired a cover designer who gave me the framework. And then I said, okay, I want a picture about food. I want a picture about transportation. I want about other than walking. I want a walking picture. I want a picture of Leon Cathedral windows for sure. So I told him what I wanted. He made the framework and then showed me the pictures. And then we started arguing about the photos, particularly about the food photo. But we ended up, fine. I love my cover personally. I think it's beautiful and colorful, and it shows the different kinds of things you're going to experience. Because as my title says, I believe people should savor it. You're only going to be there once probably. And it's not just how many miles did I walk today? How fast could I go? I encourage people to go slowly, very slowly, so they can visit the churches and visit the towns and talk with the locals and just experience all the things that are there to be experienced.
Those pictures are gorgeous of those glass windows. Oh my gosh. And how old is that?
I think Leon Cathedral was constructed in first of all, it was constructed very quickly compared to most cathedrals. So it's architecturally much more uniform than most cathedrals, but it was in the 1300s, I believe. The thing about these windows is everyone who's taken art history has read and heard about the stained glass windows at Chartres in France, which I've also seen and which are also very beautiful. But no one hears about these stained glass windows in Leon, and they are absolutely as beautiful as the ones in Chartres. 3 stories of glass. And so how does this huge building stand up with all of this glass? It's just spectacular.
Amazing.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And tell me about this blue door. What's the significance of this door with those shells there?
Shells.
These are the symbols of the Camino. First of all, the scallop shell, that is the ultimate Camino symbol. So people either bring their shell with them, or they get one as soon as they get on the trail. So that's the shells. The shepherd's hooks. In medieval times, all pilgrims carried a shepherd's hook. It was served as a walking stick. It also served to drive away wild dogs, for example, or wolves, or thieves. People had to protect themselves back in the 1200s and 1300s, which was really the height of walking the Camino until modern times. So these are just things that every Camino walking the Camino will see every day. The walking sticks, the shepherd's crooks. Almost everyone carries a shell on their backpack or as a necklace or something.
Nice. Beautiful picture. Beautiful picture. It makes me want to go do this.
I think everyone should do it. Like I said, you can't go for the whole thing, do a little piece of it and experience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. What a just beautiful, beautiful treat to just have a window into this experience that millions of people do.
Well, the thing is that the Camino, as I said, in the 1200s and 1300s, it was one of the 3 big pilgrimages. People would go to Jerusalem or Rome or Santiago. As time went on, starting like in the 1400s, due to wars and plagues and the Protestant Reformation, the desire to do a pilgrimage to Santiago began declining. Until by the time I heard about it in 1971, basically nobody was doing the Camino. But then, because of a series of events, such as James Michener's book, I believe, contributed to it. I know it did because I've talked to other people who read it too, and that sparked their interest in the Camino. But Shirley MacLaine, for example, did the Camino and wrote a book about it. The big trigger, I think, for Americans was that Martin Sheen and his son Emilio Estevez made the movie The Way. And all of a sudden people said, what the heck is this? And I want to do that. Whatever that is, I want to do it. So in the year before the pandemic, 2019, 300,000 people got their Compostela, that certificate. Now that's just the ones who went to the bother of getting it. Many, many, many more people actually traveled, all of it or part of it.
Wow.
That's just staggering. Julie, can I ask you, would you mind reading something from the book for us?
Sure. I'm going to read this. It's chapter 1. And let me just say it's only one of the motivations. I've already mentioned one was reading James Michener's book, but that was what I'm going to do. This is kind of partly why I'm going to do it. So chapter 1, The Gun. In the autumn of 1971, I was the victim of violent crime. I was a junior at Rice University in Houston, Texas. On Sunday nights, dinner was not available in my assigned dining hall. One Sunday evening, I drove to a nearby restaurant. Outside, in the dark, under the spreading arms of an oak tree, a car pulled up beside me. In short order, a gun was pointed at me. I was forced at gunpoint to enter the other car, taken to a location quite a distance away, terrorized, knocked about, and sexually assaulted. I thought I was going to die. I was 20 years old, and I believed my life was over as I stared down the barrel of a loaded gun. I felt terror, true terror, the kind that, once you have experienced it, you realize is nothing akin to being scared or afraid. It is so fundamental that you are changed at your core. You realize that despite your everyday conviction that you are in control, that you make your own destiny, those beliefs are in fact rubbish. The events of that night, made possible by the gun, changed the path of my life and eventually led me to the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, the road to Santiago de Compostela. This book recounts my journey and the things I learned along the way.
Wow, Julie. Oh.
So let me say, as I said, people go on the Camino for many, many different reasons, many reasons. And sometimes they'll share their reason with you and sometimes they hold it private. But in my case, my journey was mainly one of gratitude, to say thanks for the, by that time, 50 plus years I'd had passed when I thought I was a dead person. Mm-hmm. So it was, for me, it was not penance and it was not sorrow. It was gratitude that motivated me. But everybody comes with their own, whatever, their own life experiences to bring to the Camino. And one of the nice little customs of the Camino is that you're encouraged to start your walk with a small stone. And you carry that stone all along the way with you, and then you deposit it at this one place called the Iron Cross, the Cruz de Ferro. And it symbolizes leaving behind whatever burden it is that you've been carrying with you. So I had my stone, as did my son, and we deposited them there. And for me, it's meaningful, but I think for some people who are coming for a particular reason, like the death of a loved one, or perhaps something they did in the past that they regret, leaving that stone there has just huge, huge importance to them.
Wow. Julie, I mean, we are so grateful for you to share this with us today. Your personal story, your journey, you're sharing your journey with the world, and others need to hear this story for encouragement. You know, it's one of the things I think is empowering for us anyone who's had a trauma in their life, is to turn around and share that with others, to give them hope, especially in the time that we live in now, because people are looking and grasping for hope so much, and some light to grab onto to keep them going. And so we're really grateful for you that you know, you have done this in your life, and we certainly want to share your book with everyone that we know. So.
Well, thank you. But just to be clear, it's really not a trauma book. I was just setting out
Right.
why I did this. And it's one of several factors that made me, when I retired, say, okay, I'm going on the Camino.
You gotta do it.
That's absolutely wonderful. Julie, thank you so much. I want to say thank you to all our viewers who've joined us live on the show today, and also anyone who watches this on the rerun. Julie, we'd love to have you back again to hear more about your other book, because that title certainly has piqued my interest for sure, and I think Mary as well. So, you know, we'd love to welcome you back onto the show again. But for today, we want to say thank you immensely. Thank you for sharing your journey and for sparing some of your time for us today. Thank you very much.
The thanks go to you. I appreciate you letting me connect with you, both of you, and your listeners.
Mhm.
Absolute pleasure. To everyone out there, thanks very much for joining us in the Writers' Corner live show today. We'll see you back next week, same time, same place. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.